and I'd done the sketch, and I showed it to Pete.
So I had to do my own version, and I changed a couple things.
We'll stop and look at each other sometime and go, oh my.
Turtles rule our lives now, and I'm sure they're gonna rule our lives for at least the next 5 years.
Hey everybody, look, it's me, it's Randall Lubb, and you're gonna say, why is Randall Lubb here? Well, you know, we're doing the Kickstarter right now, which means when I bang my hands together, I make Isaac Elliott Fisher appear.
Wow.
Wait a minute, who broke into this stream?
I did. Isn't it amazing? It's like magic.
Did you
only
bring...
exist when I only exist when Randall claps his hands.
Isaac, you brought someone with you, though.
Yeah, I know. I brought my oldest friend in the world, Adam F. Goldberg.
Adam F. Goldberg, you're here. It's such a treat. For those of you that are following the Kickstarter, you know that we have an executive producer level, but we also have an executive producer. He's kind enough to be both. Adam F. Goldberg, welcome to the Kickstarter chat that we're having right now.
I am glad to be here to talk turtles. Anytime to talk turtles.
That is a thing that people enjoy, and that's part of the thing behind doing these docs. We end up meeting all these people who are in the industry, but started as fans, and that's obviously, famously, your journey. And is there anything about turtles in particular that hit you when you were at the right age?
I mean, I'm at the right age to be a Turtles fan for sure. I think toy-wise, I collected Transformers, G.I. Joe, and then the cartoon came out when I was no longer like playing with toys, but Turtles came in when I was more making stop motion animation videos, which I should dig up and post or do something with, because I have quite a few that I made. I found, first of all, the Turtles were Shredder was impossible to not, was it Shredder?
Yeah.
Shredder was impossible to stand. So I remember that. I remember having to put chewing gum on his feet.
Yep.
I digress. Anyway, I would make a lot of stop motion movies, so I collected the toys for that. I mean, I love the comics. I love the cartoon. Just lifelong fan. But I'm a little older. I think I was probably maybe late middle school, high school when Turtles really, like, the cartoon came out. Still have a deep appreciation for it, and love it, and always have. Watched all the various incarnations and actually met you through your first stab at Turtles, your first doc.
It's true, and this is for those who are jumping in. And Isaac was joking. Isaac has never met Adam. We've been in and around Adam, and Adam's been in and around what we are doing for getting close to 10 years. But the way it works, we're up here in Canada, you're in Los Angeles, and a lot of the way that you work is you have small bursts of activity where you come into a project and you have several things that you're interested in, but you also have a very demanding job that everybody knows, which is to say you're a showrunner, a writer, and a show creator, and the hustle is real, is it not? You barely have time to dig into this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point I've produced over 20 docs in the last decade.
Yeah.
And I say that they keep me sane. They're all some kind of pop culture deep dive of some sort, and they're just docs that I would want to see. And it's a lot of filmmakers that are friends, or just like have something niche that they need just help getting interviews for. I mean, that I can help with. I can't be in the trenches on a doc.
Yeah.
I'd love. I love to watch cuts and give notes. I love to help get an interview. I love to give input, but like you said, it's in bursts that I can help.
Yeah.
And then ultimately the thing I try the most to do is help sell it. Right. I have agents at WME. That can, if the director or the team doesn't have an agent, WME can help, set it up somewhere. We've done quite a few together, over the years. I think my favorite being the He-Man doc we did, for Netflix. I wish I could be real, really in there, in the editing room, but it's just, having a show or writing pilots or doing movies. There's just not the time. So, but it is so creatively fulfilling to work on something unscripted that's outside of like my world, and especially on an IP, whatever it may be, something that I love.
Yeah.
So,
And Canada's just way too cold. I mean, let's be honest.
It's freezing. There is poutine, so that's good.
We have things that set off the negatives. Like we have positive. We have maple syrup, right? We have a lot of stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Those are the two things: poutine and maple syrup. Well, I wanted to mention the Isaac part because, for those that don't know, what brought Adam into our sphere and us into his was that he randomly saw Turtle Power after it came out, but I would say more than a year after. And through sort of hook and crook, because we were so early into this pop culture doc space, and again, this is not tooting our own horn, we just happened to hit a good franchise, like Turtles was meaningful, and we did a good job, and the creators were involved. And so I think what Adam saw in that was, these guys are elevating the not the turtles themselves, but the work that you would do gets elevated when you approach it a certain way. And here's a thing that occurs to me. When he first saw, I took in a cut, I'm in his office, he's very busy, it's the Goldberg show, and it's at Sony, and of course I'm excited to be at Sony. It's the only lot I hadn't been on at the time, and it feels very like a lot, and you go in there and you feel like, this feels like it should feel, to some degree. And sitting in your office, pardon me?
They have studio tours. Yeah. There's a yoga tent. There's a museum. So all the things you should have.
And it felt like that, even just going to your office. And of course, I believe the Ghostbusters ambulance was right outside your office at the time. Right. Yeah. So I thought, I'm in the right place. And we had really not spent much time actually physically in the same space. And I took in a cut of He-Man, and you stopped it immediately. Like you're looking at it, and you hit spacebar, and you turned, and you said, "Who shot this?" And I said, "We did." And you went, "You shot this." And I went, "Well, I didn't shoot it. I worked with Isaac." And you said, and you played it again, and then you stopped it again. And you went, "This is really good. Like, this looks amazing." And I said, "He's really good." And that's him. And I told him that, and he was like, "Yeah."
And it went right to my head, and ever since.
But the point was, it was just interesting that it never lined up. Like, when I would be there and you were, available, or when I could go to the lot or whatever, Isaac was never there. When we were there shooting, we were shooting and doing what we were doing. So this is literally the first time that you see part of that process. The second thing that is interesting out of that was the people who reached out to me were people also in your orbit who were working on, different franchises, Ghostbusters and Back to the Future. Yeah. And there was a little cluster.
Yeah, the first two that I did was Back in Time and Ghost Heads. And those were more, like Ghost Heads was a fan film about the fandom.
Yeah.
We interviewed, Ivan and Dan Aykroyd. We interviewed the cast, but it was really about like the fandom at the time. There weren't the new Ghostbusters movies yet, and just how much Ghostbusters meant to the fans, and how they had a whole community. So, when I watched like you guys make definitive docs, they just look polished and pristine, and that's what I was reacting to, because I was watching cuts of basically following around fans, which is going to look more kind of like down and dirty, following their lives, and then I'm watching something that looks 4K shot polished, and I was just really impressed right up top. And of course, your Turtles doc that I saw on YouTube, was for free, and I just watched it because I wanted to see a Turtles doc, and that was your first thing, and it was great. And how I think the way we met was I said to the Back in Time team, I'm like, "You should watch this Turtles doc. I don't think these guys had much money, and it looks great." And it's really, it is a deep dive, and really kind of like covers it covers things in a great way that I haven't ever seen. So that's why the team reached out to you, just to ask how you did it, because we also didn't have a lot of money. And this was easily 10 years ago, if not more, right?
It's maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah. It was 10 years ago that film came out, and we started it 15 years ago. So
And 10 years ago now was when we started into He-Man, working with Rob McCallum and Conan the Barbarian at the same time. And think how much the industry has changed since then, like how hard it is. I know you were involved in Disturbance in the Force, and we're friendly with Kyle. We worked with Kyle on a Baywatch project and thought Kyle was awesome, but he's in the same struggle. It's just hard to get the attention. So we've gone to Kickstarter to try and take some of the power back to go to the fans with the material. And even at your level, and I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, you were in Disney, but you said you found it hard to get stuff going, that you were frustrated. You felt like it was difficult even at that level.
What's crazy, I don't know if I'm supposed to tell this story or not, Randall, but so we've been working on this for so long that initially Randall and I went to the head of Paramount, the president of Paramount, and said, like, we want to do this Turtles follow-up because so much has happened since 10 years has passed for Turtles since you made that first piece, right?
Yes.
And also you've built a whole company and you're infinitely better. And you've done, the Crystal Calls, you've worked with Netflix and Henson, and we've done docs together, and I've done now docs, so many docs on all these IPs. So we're now firing on all cylinders, right? We know what we're doing. So we felt like we could really do something new and special. So we went to the president of Paramount and we said, we want to do this Turtles kind of like just exploring everything that's happened and the reboots and everything. And we got a blessing that was awesome. We were like, Paramount approves, go do your thing. And we're going to most likely buy it, right? So we were like so excited, and we went off, and the business changed so much so quickly. I mean, when we went, there was no Paramount Plus. Didn't exist. And all of these presidents changed and new executives came in, that by the time we had a lot shot, there really wasn't even a department to pitch to. And Paramount, as you've read in the news, it's in such limbo right now in a sale. Like, even if we had a finished doc, we don't even know who to sell it to. Like, I don't know that there's an unscripted department even at Paramount Plus, so we just have to make it and figure and just be proactive. So like we had approval to go do it, and then as the years kind of tick by, everything changes year to year. So now the best thing for us to do is to get the money to finish it up, because we've been shooting for so long. And get the money to do the post, get our final interviews, and get it out into the world, because it's great.
The trick has been, think about this. We had some very interesting meetings in 2019 and then 2020, and then the wheels fell off in 2020, and then the strike happened after the pandemic eases off, and the industry had all the problems that it has. And I can understand how Paramount was in this position. We won't say the executive that we talked to, but he's still he actually got raised. He moved up. He got raised in the company.
Right.
But that company is still in flux. And the way that these companies, even you've seen so many other IP, that it's difficult for them to get their hands around how to approach this, isn't it? It's tough for them to think of, and again, I'm not trying to get you to tell stories that frustrate, but you said you've done some work in Muppets where you would think Muppets is a huge brand, but they're struggling to get their hands around how to approach some of these things. So going to Kickstarter solves some of that.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Like, there's working with a studio on their IP is always the best way to do something, because they own it, and you have great access, and you have a lot of money to do it, to make it great. The problem is you're working with a large corporation, and that is incredible. Like, look, doing a contract alone could take 6 months.
Yeah.
And we've been shooting this thing, and we have so much. We're editing it. So, like, at a certain point, the fans are what I'm a fan, and I want to see it. So, like, we just have to, at a certain point, if the studio is in such limbo and being sold, and there's you have to go through all that red tape, I would rather just have the fans give $10 and just to watch it. You know what I mean? Like I would rather it because we're not making a feature movie of like a narrative, a scripted thing. We're making a doc telling something for the fans about the story of turtles. Like that's for the fans. So that we're just tapping into that. We want to tap into that network and let the fans watch something cool about something they love. And that's like, that's a great way to get something done. Is it going to be, I mean, really where the people that don't, it's you guys that are making it. It's you guys that get hurt because you're not being paid studio money. Like for the viewer, it's the same. You're either giving the money to Kickstarter or you're giving the money to Paramount to buy it on iTunes. Like it's the same thing for the viewer.
Yeah.
But for you guys, you just right now, it's like it's like the creator of the piece is the one that kind of gets a little screwed because you're doing it on your own, so you're not going to make the same money. But at a certain point, it's like, okay, well, we'd rather just make it and have it done and enjoyed, and maybe this will lead to something else.
Yeah.
Like, who knows? I mean, look, He-Man for Netflix, I'm sure for all of us, it was, we probably lost money on it. Who knows? But you guys got the Dark Crystal.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So, and that was huge for you guys, for your company. And you got to work with Henson and Netflix. So it's really about that too. But yeah, I mean, look, the Turtles fandom is huge. I think the Kickstarter is nearing 100 if it's not there already. And
we're over that. Yeah.
Well,
okay,
we're US, 100 US.
Oh yeah. That's right. You're looking at US dollars. Yeah. We're over that Canadian, but just under American.
So I mean, that's really strong. That's a really strong fandom.
With 21 days to go. Yeah, it's just a matter of getting in front of people.
And to that end, one of the reasons that I wanted Isaac to be in this conversation, not just to get a belly rub, although who doesn't love a belly rub? I mean,
and I have a fuzzy belly.
Something that something that I've always been the wrong corner of the triangle on is Isaac's a toy guy and you're a toy guy, and not just an appreciator, but you've had your garbage pail kids. I mean, you've had some very customized stuff, and you've over the years seen some of the custom stuff that we've done, and it's always been Isaac. And so welding the toys into this Kickstarter, I thought it'd be really great to introduce you to, so you could know about what we're trying to do to kind of put some medicine and sugar together. It's hard for people sometimes to pay for a movie because they're used to movies appearing for free. So we've got these toys and tchotchkes and interesting little things, and so that's important.
Yeah. So you're doing the Kevin and Peter figures, correct?
Well, we're doing 3 figures off the top, hopefully more. Okay. So the first idea was to take, and I don't have them behind me, unfortunately. The first idea, I have them right here, was to take the concepts that were done originally, like this one. This is cool. This is way back when they were pitching the line internally at Playmates. All the Shredder's henchmen were going to be human. It was actually Peter and Kevin who were pushing, like, what if we did mutant animals instead? So they obviously ended up with Bebop and Rocksteady. So one of the ideas we had early on was, why don't we do like modernized Playmate style action figures of unproduced human bad guys, and why don't we drag Steve Varner out of retirement
like
to
physically
sculpt them? Yeah, physically, poor guy. I drove down there, dragged him out. He's actually this weekend. He's in his 70s and he was chopping down his girlfriend's trees with a chainsaw. I said, you should probably not do that. So this is a little bit of a rough print, unfortunately, but this is a rendering. Now, in this case, this is obviously doesn't look like a Playmates style toy. He just did the straight up a sculpted pose based on the original concept. So we're gonna straighten this guy up, make him a lot more like the Playmates proportions. And then it was, we were looking at doing those, and we said, well, nobody's ever done a Kevin and Peter. So the Kevin and Peter the sculptures right now, these look very natural or say human proportion in sizes. Whereas if you look at like say a Vernon Fenwick from the original Playmates line, like they're a lot chunkier, right? Their hands are chunkier, their legs are bigger. So we're actually working with some fan sculptors as well as Steve to get these into this proportion. Now, the cool thing about keeping this version where they're human proportions is we're actually going to put these guys into like a natural pose where they're like, leaning maybe back to back, and then do like an 8 to 10 inch bronze statue of Kevin and Peter on a base and everything like that. So those will actually still utilize this human proportion version with Steve to do sculptures as well. So hopefully we're going to announce that officially and show what it looks like in the next couple of days, depending on how fast Steve can sculpt. So, cracking the whip, poor guy.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, there's these layers of elements. And so the reason that we're doing that is because in this building that I'm sitting in now, for the past 6 years, we've been developing the idea of producing toys domestically, internally. So not just designing toys, but actually doing the tooling and the injection molding and the packaging and the distribution here rather than going overseas. So this was like a natural extension to that R&D project that we could go, let's deliver them and we'll do them ourselves. So that way we can do a few hundred as a run rather than say, okay, we got to go to Asia and order a minimum run of 5,000 units, right? We can actually do a few hundred and not 3D print them and not make them by hand. We're going to make them injection mold and we're going to do it that way. So
I've off of Kickstarter bought a number of these kind of things. There was, I think, a Larry Hama at one point for G.I. Joe. Yeah. Like, always awesome. Yeah. So such a cool idea. And even if I didn't know you guys, I would want those those toys. Just a great idea.
Do you think it's true, Adam, that and again, I'm conscious of time. We don't want to go too deep, but do you think it's true that it's important now to have the physical attachments to these things? Like some people have been frustrated because you don't collect DVDs, you don't collect albums, you don't collect CDs, you don't think it's hard to collect, and you have that collector's mentality. And so we're so used to just content just flying at us. Like you could go and watch every episode of the Goldbergs, but you don't actually have the box, so you don't have the same connection to it. So our strategy was to build physical things into the Kickstarter to give that point, that talisman, something you could have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a pain in the ass for you guys because you got to ship it all out. So, I think that's the reason that some people don't want to do it because, if you're going to have, you're going to have to ship out hundreds of things potentially. But I feel like there was a time when streaming was kind of new where even I was like, I was getting rid of all my CDs and, throwing away my, putting my favorite DVDs into like a CD booklet and just throwing out all the boxes because I was like, I want to consolidate everything and get rid of this giant bookshelf of DVDs I had. Why am I wasting space? And now I'm bummed that I did it because it's kind of like, again, it was like a collection that there was a time where I was like, why am I collecting this? But I think people are now going back and realizing now that everything is just so in a cloud, like, there is something that people want that's like tangible that people are going back to. It's like you go retro. There was like a time during the pandemic where my son was playing Dungeons and Dragons, old school.
Like paper.
Mostly because of Zoom, right? You could do that over Zoom, but there was this thing that was happening, which was like, instead of video games, we're going to go like old school retro and like have some like, so I think there's that kind of like mentality that happens where you get swept up in like the new wave of like what the new kind of technology is, and then you're like, and you kind of miss the old days. So
you go back to LPs.
Yeah, I think it's smart. Blu-rays, DVD, all that stuff. It's like I love having copies of the stuff I work on. And I know people love, especially with documentaries, I think people like having a copy of it because it's a little bit more rare. Like everyone has their Fight Club DVD in their bookshelf, but to have a Turtles doc, it's a little bit more like weird and special to have.
It's almost owning a piece of the history itself in a way.
Yeah.
A documentation of it. Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
Do you think maybe too, and just a couple more little things to discuss, do you think maybe too that the preponderance of YouTube content has sort of killed the behind the scenes look? Like you saw the Dark Crystal doc we did is a very intense behind the scenes. Like you see the Muppet character actors, and you've seen that with your own show, Muppet Mayhem, The Muppet Mayhem. Yeah. The work that goes into it is beyond the wildest imaginations, what's living under the rostrums. And in a way, YouTube has killed some of that, hasn't it? Taken some of the sexiness and excitement out of those behind the scenes looks.
That's what I didn't want to happen, guys. Well, now you know what my ringtone is. It's my Super Mario Brothers ringtone. I do. I think everyone kind of dumping stuff on YouTube for free does kind of take out the specialness for sure. And I know that studios now also don't want all the behind the scenes stuff on their DVDs. I don't know that DVDs were selling. So they're like, why are we going to spend money when it's on YouTube for free?
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff's on YouTube free, and like the DVDs aren't selling anyway. So yeah, I think but now there are they're putting out a lot of steelbooks. Like I do think like it is kind of like coming back.
I think so too.
In the vinyl is coming back.
Yeah.
Well, it's at some point the YouTube remixers are going to run out of content to remix. Until we release this.
Isaac, tell them what. Just tell them what you told us recently when we had that, when you were kind of going through some YouTube channels and how much of our content was being built into these.
Well, yeah, I mean, we were noticing that really early, as the YouTube remixers were doing it became very much about video essays and these very accessible, very quick, very with 10 to 30 or more minutes, sometimes 2 hours. Like there's deep dive documentaries on YouTube on the Ninja Turtles that lots of people have watched that are literally just a person reading Wikipedia essentially and showing clips from our doc.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting remix thing because all of them would use portions of Turtle Power, especially the nuggets of archives that we were able to uncover and release in there. So I've actually then gone from kind of being frustrated by the exploitation of that content over and over and over again. And obviously it did radically change the nature of our ability to sell things into studios and stuff like that. So it is frustrating, but at the same time, right now we've been actually working with as many of those as we can one-on-one to say, listen, we're about to hand you guys, whether we hand it directly to you or not, we're about to hand you the largest archive dump in Turtles history ever. And you're going to have content for decades to exploit. So can you help us spread the word? And so many of them have actually been really, really great and working directly with us and getting excited about the collaboration on research. And, can they can we take advantage of their audience already and sort of, they'll do a piece on us or on our campaign.
Isaac, the rich irony, and Adam probably knows this, that you would put out the actual content. If we release it, we might get 100 views, but if someone remixes it and they have that YouTube platform and the algorithm and the right
tens of thousands
and they
of
have tens of thousands of views. So
Paramount takes Turtle Power 1 and slices it into pieces and they get tens of thousands of views on YouTube, and it is fascinating to see that model shift. But it's interesting though, because at least now those content creators aren't going out like we had done and travel all over the place and shoot interviews. They just went and did the research from their desktop and then wrote a script and used visuals to build something. And that's fine, but you're not getting, Frank Langella. You're not getting those people's faces, right?
And that was the final thing I was going to say, is that one of the, to let you go after this, one of the things that you've done for us is you've made it possible for us to make our docs better by getting people that are difficult to get, that you have used your profile to help us supercharge some of our requests and some of our asks. And it's nice to be able to thank you in person, but it's also nice to think that that you are as excited by it as we are, that you were excited by getting Frank Langella or Dolph Lundgren. That's what's really fun for everybody.
I love that, like, Frank loved talking about Skeletor, and he really treated it like it was a important, like, role, and he, like, it was awesome. That was such a cool get.
Yeah.
To hear him say genuinely that, not that this is about He-Man, but to hear him say genuinely that Skeletor was his favorite role of, like, God knows how many roles that guy's done.
Yeah.
And I mean, what a great moment.
Yeah.
King Lear with a skull face. Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we'll let you get back to work, but just as we look forward, once we get this out, and maybe, I don't know, maybe a studio looks back at us again, maybe Paramount says, you know what, people are caring again, let's try it again. Is there something that you're working on that you can talk about or mention? And it's not just because I want to do docs on it with you, but just, I know you've been struggling with trying to get what you want to do out there as well. So is there something you can say that you're passionate about? I know you've been working on some Aliens and some comics together.
Totally. That we just wrapped that up. I did a Alien What If comic that you mentioned. Paul Reiser, bringing his character from Aliens, Carter Burke, back from the dead. We posed in our comic that he actually survived the Aliens film and is living on an asteroid and has to take on another alien attack. That's been super fun. I have a doc that came out this week, last week, that I love. Basically about the Mignolaverse, Mike Mignola, like about it's the creation of Hellboy and his legacy and his relationship with Guillermo, and the making of the Hellboy movies. We had a tough time selling it because all the streamers thought it was very niche.
Yeah.
And my wife had never heard of Hellboy, and when she watched it, she was just riveted at just this genius creating this whole universe. So I do think it plays universal, and it's such a great doc. I highly recommend it. And I'm glad it's out in the world.
And that's Jim and Kevin. Jim and Kevin are great guys and put their heart and soul into that. And I know it's doing well out there right now in the rental space in the iTunes, and well earned.
Yeah, it's great to see that it's #1 on iTunes, and that, like, streamers were like, no one wants to watch a Hellboy thing. It's just great, And it's awesome. And then the other one, Goonies, my favorite movie of all time.
Exactly.
We reached our funding for a Life After Goonies doc. So just were in my office 2 weeks ago shooting a bunch of interviews. Really, really excited about that one too. So Turtles and Goonies. I think after this, I don't know what's left. I don't know. I think I've covered it all.
I think we can think of a few.
I'll just send you more pitch documents.
Have you watched Transformers 1? I know, Randall, I know you're a Transformers guy. Have you seen
I'm going out with the kids on the weekend.
I have not seen it. But for those that don't know, that is your sort of your G1 Transformers, right? That's your matrix.
That is my thing. I'm more GoBots than Transformers, tell you the truth. But the movie's amazing. I highly recommend it to everybody.
Fantastic. Going to see it.
Great.
Well,
it's as great as the Turtles, as Seth Rogen's Turtles movie from last year. Like, it's cool that these, animated, and the Spider-Man animated, like, there's it's such a great way to do these old, 80s properties.
Yeah.
They work so well in animation.
Yeah. And Spider-Man was my Transformers to you. I was Spider-Man and X-Men were my first. Yeah. So I'm still holding out that someday we get to crack into the big D and the M, the Disney and the Marvel again. There's lots of Muppet stuff that hasn't been talked about, and maybe it's over, but anyway.
Well, I don't know. Yeah. I think Disney had some Marvel docs on Disney Plus, and they pulled them all off.
They did.
So I don't know that they're interested in what we're doing. I think it was it on Comic Book Creators? I don't remember. It was recent. They had something.
It was
basically if we just figure out how to do true crime in pop culture doc land, then we'll sell everything.
Totally. Absolutely.
Crazy.
Absolutely.
Well, there we have it. A little Kickstarter treat. We had Adam F. Goldberg, creator of the Goldbergs and the Muppet Mayhem and many other things that you've seen. I mean, go back and look at Fanboys. He wrote that. That was a long time ago, 10 years ago, right around the Turtle time, if I'm not mistaken. So he is a fellow traveler, and he is an executive producer, and he's a good person, and he's helping us, and anything we can do for him, we always will. And we hope that you will check out what we're doing next. Keep your eyes peeled for more tiers, more rewards, and add-ons coming as we poke Isaac right in his toy shop and make him do more stuff for us. Thank you very much. And we'll
I'm working as fast as I can.
Don't listen to him. Don't listen to the panic in his voice.